name is Sarah Bentley Pearson, and I am excited to share my podcast, which features wonderful talent that I've been so lucky to discover in the Southeast. This was born out of a list that I created in 2015 called Sarah's List. And through my work in real estate, which I've been doing since 2005, and styling work, and just my personal life and my personal interests, I've been able to meet so many wonderful people, and I'm excited to share them with you. Allie and Murray, should I call you Allie or Allison? How do you like?
Oh, no, call me Allie.
Okay, because I've known you as Allie for, I think, over 20 years, maybe.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. It's been a long time.
That is a long time.
Yeah. I met
that's
Sarah
amazing.
a long time ago.
Yeah, but you never shared really your personal story when I met you.
Mhm.
And I was really touched by your story.
Oh,
Like-
thank you. Oh.
Like, you're like a sister to me.
Oh,
So,
Thank you.
but what I loved about your story is that a lot of times as professionals, we all kind of come in with like, this is who I am, and it's been a straight line, and
Sure.
and that isn't really life. And I didn't even know you went to AU.
yeah.
Because I grew up in Chevy Chase, so
Yeah.
it's like I went drinking at the campus at AU, because remember the bar there? So when I was in high school, we used to go there, and my boyfriend lived on Foxhall Road, so that was like my stomping ground when I was in my high school years. And so to know that you were kind of there when I was there is interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. And I love DC.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love DC
so much
too.
fun.
Sometimes when I go back, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing in Georgia? But Georgia has its wonderful things too.
Sure
So,
does.
but your story really reminded me of Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love. And what I loved about that book is kind of how she shared her heartache of being on the bathroom floor with the boyfriend and
Mhm.
wanting to find something different, and her journey continues. You're a great therapist, and I love how you also said that early on working with couples, that now you've really changed your approach after doing some work with Terry Real and some others. So I want to get more into that, but Jim and I did the couples college with both of you, so that's how I got to know you, Murray.
Yes.
And then knowing you went to Columbia, and I used to always, of course, go to New York and had lived in New York at one time in my life. So
Yeah.
it's like the Northeasterners.
Here we
I
are.
Well,
know,
here we are.
I know here we are. The loud Northeasterners. Here we are.
Well, we're definitely not a bless your heart group.
No.
And so I think we could get right into it. I've read Terry Real's books, and I wanted to ask you, why are the Gottmans and Terry Real so innovative to marriages and couples? Like obviously nobody wants to live like the 1950s couple, but what through that work were you able to bring people who were in a challenging space back together?
Mhm.
And what is it about that work?
Yeah. Well, I think Gottman's work, for one thing, is one of the few areas of work that's so well researched.
Yeah.
Because this field is notoriously bad at research. And he didn't come as a therapist in his background. He was an engineer, and he started to look at like what makes couples work. And he interviewed and had them live in an apartment, 3,000 couples that he followed over 30 years, to see what was successful in coupling, what wasn't successful in coupling, what made, as he called it, the masters of relationships and the disasters of relationships. And so there's a lot in his work that we draw on to help couples see a roadmap for how to create their relationships in a positive way. So he is just wonderful, a resource for couples. I think one of the things about it, I'm very much into the performing arts, as Allie knows, and I love performance. And one of the things that he does, and this is especially valuable for men, but both men and women, is he creates scripts for how to be, because
He does.
our relationships are heavily scripted. We react to one another and talk to one another in ways that we learn from our families and learn from our
Yes.
cultures, and it's very patternized. And he has been, really an incredible resource to say, oh, if you talk about it this way, it's not going to work. If you start up harshly in a conversation, 96% of the time it's going to go south.
And you can't pull it back.
Right.
It's not just that it goes south. You can't pull it back. You're going to have to realize those moments as a couple and say, okay, this was a bad day and we can repair it, but I'm not probably going to be able to pull it back in that moment. We are going to have a conflict.
Yeah.
And so he normalizes conflict,
Yeah.
right? He's saying, look, everybody has conflict. We all get stuck. And I think he's created patterns of learning that are very simple to understand. I think that was for me, that was the greatest gift of his work.
Yeah.
I mean, when I read his work and then taught it to Wayne, we started doing it, my husband and I. It was so practical.
Yeah.
It was easy to understand. It's practical. When you put the behavioral change in place, you can see the impact very quickly in your relationship.
Right. Yeah, it is really interesting. I'm in Al-Anon also, and so
Yeah.
I'm constantly learning that, if I change, things can change too. That we're so, and I grew up in an alcoholic home and go to victim, the side of feeling victimized by my choices or my life or the people in my life versus being proactive and looking at how I'm approaching things and what is being mirrored right back to me. If I'm being aggressive, I'm going to get aggressive. And so, I think his work was interesting. Gottman, I believe it was Gottman that talked about, we're picking these relationships to sort of heal past relationships. And that is something that's very frustrating in life. That you keep picking these people that are like re-injuring you in some way, but that the person that wouldn't injure you, you're like, I don't really want to have sex with them, maybe. Like, it's very complex.
Yeah.
We pick familiarity. So if you have a parent who is like my mom, intermittently there, intermittently not there because of depression and emotional issues she had, then you're going to pick somebody who's familiar. So they're going to repeat maybe the same pattern with you. And they're going to trigger you because they're doing that thing you want to get out of, really. It was something that caused hurt to you. And so if you settle down, there's a real opportunity as a couple to say, look, we could repair our family history here. We could repair ourselves because now we're going to be doing something where we could move out of that painful experience we had, say, with our parents or caregiver, or even a past partner. We could change that if we want to, but you can't do that without cultivating a very mature response that you work at, that you practice, kind of like meditation. I think of it as like meditation or sport.
Yeah.
Or even praying. Like you have to keep at it.
Yeah, you have to be conscious.
Yeah.
And you can't, you have to be diligent. And it's really hard, and it sucks when you fall and you hurt each other. And what does Terry Real bring to the industry? I mean, I love listening to him, but what is new about Terry Real?
So Terry brings, I think what Terry does is he worked with men. A lot of men he worked with had depression. That was where he started. And, male depression is interesting because male depression, which is self-esteem based, guys end up really disconnecting and going to work.
Right. That's where they succeed.
That's where they succeed. And emotional relationships are more challenging for them, so they can avoid the emotional relationship and kind of go into those places where they feel confident. And I think what Terry did was he really brought that to the forefront, that a lot of men's knee-jerk reactive behavior and disconnection and like non-relational behavior needed to really be focused on. Because today's women are not going to be in a relationship where they don't have relational connection. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Women are too awake now. and they're too, that they want more. They want, like, and most women relationally, we know how to do that. We've been trained to be relational. We've been trained to give and take.
Mm-hmm.
From a young age, girls are taught very young, give here, let go here, move around the system, the family system. So his work really is primarily designed to look at helping that system. And then he did it through grandiosity and shame.
Yeah, and just by the way, to add to that, men didn't have the same kind of social experience that transformed the idea of who a man is. Women did. The women's movement, the feminist movement, as Ali said, so women started to have a voice. Men kind of still can live in the 1950s in terms of their idea of what it means to be a man, what it means to have a family, what it means to have a relationship. And so they haven't shifted as much. And one of the important things about Terry's work is helping men and women to see that together, but see that in compassion, as well as taking a really hard look at what the impact of that is and how that affects non-relationality in a friendship.
Well, and I mean, I'm having a son who's now 15. I was telling Murray before you came in that toxic masculinity is real.
Oh yeah, very
for sure.
It's real because I went from this sweet, understanding, inquisitive, kind of old soul to something different. And I'm sure it'll come back. I mean, maybe he's just trying to figure himself out. But I'm like, wow, the drive to procreate already seems to be there. Like the drive to have not just one girl, but many. And it's so cute because I have Pearson, who's 15, and Fallon, who's 14, and we can sit at the dining room table, and I'll say, well, she's ready to find her Prince Charming and settle down forever in her mind.
Yeah, sure.
And he is ready to just get the belt out and start putting the notches in.
Yes.
And it's such a disconnect. And then I have a stepdaughter who's 21 on her way to 22. And I was like, put them on this shelf for a while because they're of really no use to you right now. I mean, you do have to practice a little bit on them, but like, our mentality, I mean, my first boyfriend was like, in my mind at 15, the love of my life.
Perfect. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And how he was to me impacted me deeply. So it's such an interesting disconnect. And one of the things as it relates to men is that, I feel like women are kind of like, we're doing everything we can. How can I be better? How can I be better? How can I be better? And that a lot of the boys, I'm like, they're going to be left behind, if they don't step up and, do some work. But it is hard because they are naturally the leaders.
They don't know, Sarah. Like what we find really interesting when we teach the class is that probably it shifts men more than women. It settles women. Right,
because we're almost hyper, like on alert, on fire.
When men are doing this walled off kind of disconnection, or coming in and then leaving, and coming in and leaving,
right?
Women go into this victimized place, and sometimes they retaliate with aggression or passive aggressive behavior because they're feeling injured, and they're not stepping into healthy self-esteem where they just name what's injuring them, have their rights. But with love, with care, they tend to either go aggressive or passive aggressive in some way. But, I think what happens a lot in the class is that, and we see this every single time we teach it. Yeah. Men are like, I didn't even know I was doing that. Yeah. I had no idea that I was doing that or the harm it was creating to my partner. And so that's helpful for people because a lot of times women are over there going, hey, this is simple. Just shift that. Why won't you shift it? But we're talking about generational patterning. That takes 2 to 5 years of consistent work to actually shift. Like you get the insight first, and then you have to work it and work it and work it. And, you know, it's hard work too, because your instinct says, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying, look, if you really want to be deeply, relationally, intimately connected to your partner, you actually have to do this other thing that goes against
Your instincts.
your normal instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're cultivating a new behavior. And when you cultivate a new behavior, it takes time.
Are you familiar with Allison Armstrong's work? She wrote a book called The Queen's Code, and she teaches a course.
I'm not.
It is
No.
fabulous, fabulous work.
Mhm.
And she went into that work sort of, not being happy with men and hating
Mhm.
men, and through working with men and interviewing men and gathering data like the Gottmans,
Mhm.
It's almost like a cheat as a woman once you know this stuff. Like
Mhm.
a man coming home from work, he wants to take the armor off.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know how he needs that break in between one world and the other world. And I always notice this when I talk to my husband, Jim, about something hard, is that, I can be like, this is what's going on and this is how I feel. And either he'll retaliate really like in defensiveness, but if he's trying to not be defensive, he's going to the well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what she says. And that the emotions are so deep down in there
Mhm.
that like you could be sitting there tapping your fingers like when he's going to say anything, but if you're really, really quiet,
Oh, yeah.
something beautiful will come
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
But understanding those differences and how we access our emotions, and
Yeah.
her work is beautiful work. And she also talked about the stages of a man. An elder is obviously not going to act like a page.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sure.
And we with children, we can be like, oh, that's toddler behavior.
Mhm.
Well, there is also behavior of men in their 40s that if how we react to it will help them either kind of get out of that phase and go through it smoothly, or if we're not reacting to it a certain way, kind of can keep that stage going longer.
Mhm.
But I think it's fascinating, and a lot of the work to
Yeah.
me too, just men and women and all of that, is that we all come into life and relationships with kind of preconceived, patterned things that we're looking for in a partner. I mean, in my case, being from a middle class family in Washington, somebody who went to Columbia like yourself,
Mhm.
that checked a box. And it's none of it's really conscious, but you're
Mhm.
like, okay, well, if he works at the pizza joint, he might not be somebody I want to like have children with.
Mhm.
Maybe you want somebody tall for reproduction. Like there are all these things going down, but then
Yeah.
you get all those things, and not even including the other person, but like the home, the child, all these things, and then sort of
Yeah.
a deep depression can set in, especially for men, as I understand. Like,
Mhm.
I thought this would all make me happy,
Mhm.
and then I think that her work is saying that, like, well, that's why a lot of times they buy Porsches or Ferraris or have affairs,
Sure.
just kind of trying to figure all of that. They don't know how to access why they're unhappy.
Sure.
And women too. I mean, it's just all different phases. And I wanted to talk before we go into the couples college. I just wanted to ask, like, just a few couple of questions that were sort of coming to my mind about relationships, and you two being the experts. Being married for the second time and being older, do you think that couples should? I mean, I did the couples college with Jim, and that was profound work, and the conversations were really good. And we're older, so we did talk about this. But do you think couples should discuss deal breakers and set boundaries on relationships
Yeah,
as they
sure.
get started?
Absolutely.
They need to be very clear
Yeah.
on what's needed, what you want. When I first dated my wife, and we dated considerably older when we got together. I was
What was that?
40, she was 35.
Oh wow! Okay.
Or what we were talking. And I talked about what's very important to me, including music, including a lot of other interests. And I said, I will always put you number one, but I'll always put a lot of other things number one.
Mhm.
And so we have to have that understanding that I will do my best to be close to you and be there for you, but also I don't want you to feel like all of these other interests are me leaving you or a rejection of you or that you're any less to me than all of these things.
And I think men are more comfortable with their other interests. Women in general our spouse, at least that was the case for me in my first marriage. My spouse was like my numero uno in my mind, how to make him happy, whatever, everything was through him.
Yes.
But as I grew older, no, that's just one piece of my life.
Well, so the thing is that when we look at deal breakers, or we look at, like Sarah, even putting too much into a spouse, I'm losing my self-empowerment when I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you lose your self-empowerment in relationship, you have no power.
Mm-hmm.
You can complain about the same thing 1,000 times, but you're not really saying to anybody, I can't have this in my life because it distresses me this much, and I can't then connect and be intimate with you. And so to do that would mean for me to settle into a relationship that maybe I don't want. To have deal breakers or to have straightforward conversations about look, to be with you, these are some of the things I'm going to need.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do that in a calm, loving, healthy, productive way, it just comes out as complaining.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out as badgering someone.
Mm-hmm.
You'll end up with a very walled off person
Mm-hmm.
who just feels like, this person just comes at me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So if you start a relationship and you have the maturity to really, and I think,
But maturity is a big one.
well, but the young kids are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, these young kids, man, they're
Mm-hmm.
impressive.
Yeah.
These young women,
Very true.
see, I had to find my voice. You had to find your voice.
Mm-hmm.
These young women, they do not have to find their voice. They have a little more clarity on it. Now, they might have to figure out the tools around it, how to use it. But they're not confused about their rights, I don't think, as women. I think they feel like they have a right to these things.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't grow up that way.
Well, and my son even
Mm-hmm.
told me recently that he'd be fine if his wife was the breadwinner.
Oh,
Mhm.
my son says
Yeah.
that all the time.
And I'm like, you better change that attitude because you're gonna, if you want to have children, she's gonna have to do that too. So you're gonna have to step up.
I
But
don't
I
know.
don't think
I don't
men
know.
of the 1950s thought that.
My daughter would want at least a co-partner.
Yes. Yes.
So,
But
but
so,
yes.
because I earn more than my husband, so Dane's always like, I'll be fine with that. And so lots of kids, now women are earning, I think it's about 50-50 now.
When Tulane, my friend's daughter just got into Tulane and they accept more women than men.
Yeah.
So as being a mother of a son, I think so. I think so much about that. Like, they can't, and being a white male, your entitlement that is in your genes is not relevant.
Yeah.
You have to spread yourself. You have to go a little deeper
Yeah.
than maybe you're inclined to.
You have to grow. You have
Yeah.
to earn it, and you have to. And women know that because women have to work. A lot of times in workplaces, and just like in particular Black women, you have to work like twice as hard
Mhm.
in corporate environments and other environments to be seen at least half as much.
Right.
So women have the experience of working hard and having to do that. And as you said, men have learned that, I'm a man and that's enough to get me into the door and to be successful. But that's changing. As you said earlier, more and more women are getting into colleges, going to the workforce, taking over jobs, leading in so many ways. I think that's exciting.
I think it's exciting.